You're always tweeting about, Bitcoin is the way, you're super bullish on Bitcoin, but then you're also tweeting that you think Ethereum is the best macro trade of the decade, and you're building an Ethereum treasury company. I personally don't understand it. And even Michael Saylor, I think, has said recently that he doesn't see a compelling reason to do so with any other digital asset but Bitcoin. So can you explain your point of view on this?
Yes. I don't see this as a conflict. It's the same reason why someone who says they like Tesla but they like Palantir, because they're both scarce stocks, right? Like, there's one Tesla because there's only one Elon Musk in the world. And there's only one Palantir because while it's not completely clear exactly how Palantir transforms companies, you can see whether it's a hospital in Michigan or wherever, they are really providing superhuman powers to a business. So, you should own both. Bitcoin to me is a proven blockchain that, in my mind, is storing value. And it is, as like Michael Saylor says, it's immaculate. And I do think the simplest way to think of it is it's replacing gold. So at least let's get to 1 million, and then we can see how much further Bitcoin goes. But the world is also grappling with the digitalization of everything that we do. And so we're storing information, and we're tokenizing businesses, and we're tokenizing the dollar. And stablecoins have become so important, in fact, from a policy perspective, because stablecoins are now actually big buyers of treasuries collectively. I mean, that's why you may say you don't have to worry about deficits because stablecoins will buy the debt. Well, that is the ChatGPT moment for crypto, because what's happened is that the first killer app for crypto has emerged that is now seeing widespread adoption, which is stablecoins. And now Wall Street is running to tokenize and maybe even financialize their entire system on the blockchain. But that means they require smart contracts. So they're not fighting with Bitcoin. Bitcoin paved the way for Wall Street to recognize that you don't have to have tangible assets to create value. But if you're going to tokenize what Wall Street does, and you tokenize stocks and real estate, you need smart contracts. And the biggest and most secure blockchain with no downtime is Ethereum. And it's legally compliant. And the majority of stablecoins and real world assets that have been tokenized are taking place on Ethereum. So to me, that is the macro moment. So in 2017, when I first wrote about Bitcoin, I saw this as the time when Wall Street would eventually come to recognize Bitcoin's importance. So Bitcoin, of course, had already accomplished a lot because it reached 100 billion in network value. And that's why I wrote about it. It's like, if you don't believe in something to get to 100 billion, like, you got to pay attention to. And our thesis was that Wall Street would start to view this as just digital gold. Well, I think Ethereum is having its 2017 moment now, because now is the time that Wall Street will take tokenization seriously, and it's taking place on Ethereum. So I do think it is the biggest macro trade for the next decade.
I just see so much risk, because when they made the trade-off to proof of stake, they introduced a lot of complexities, centralization risks. There have been issues in terms of more vectors for attack when they do bridges and the layer twos. There are other protocols that do smart contracts. A lot of people are working on the functioning of that with Bitcoin, right, to enable smart contracts on Bitcoin. So how do you mitigate the risk in Ethereum that a lot of people see? I mean, the SEC could still classify it as a security.
Yes. Well, these risks that you describe seem like smaller risks compared to the fragility of the existing financial system, right? So let's say, what is the financial system's value in the US, in the real world today? Well, the GDP is 80 trillion, and the financial system is 80 trillion. And that runs on plumbing that, if you're raising risks, are far more fragile. We are using trust vectors that are, in some cases, arcane systems, transfer agents that rubber stamp things. I mean, look at the level of fraudulent activity on a traditional financial system ledger. JP Morgan, who I think is leading in terms of security for its customers and trying to do fraud prevention, still about 7% of their activity is suspicious. So you can't prevent infiltration. So is Ethereum superior to that? Yeah. I mean, so if you're comparing it to Bitcoin, we're comparing the wrong analog, is my opinion.
So if you had to put all your money into one, though, over the next 10 years, would you choose Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Now, why are we making that a choice?
I'm just curious. If you could just only choose one.
Well, if I had to choose, because I'm chairman of BitMine, which is an Ethereum treasury, then I, of course, would choose Ethereum.